It's a privilege here to welcome our speakers today. We have a fantastic lineup, and we'll be joined by some of our Rogers Smart Building partners and the Rogers product team. Today, you'll hear from Rebecca Delzalti. Rebecca is a product manager within the Smart Buildings and Construction portfolio, and she is passionate about bringing on partnerships that can help create operational efficiencies for buildings and to ensure the security of buildings, assets, and people. Rebecca will walk us through some of our smart buildings and construction portfolio and the importance of mitigating risks in our buildings. Next up, we'll have Sam Reed. Sam is the Director of Partner Sales at Eddy Solutions, and he's spent over 20 years in the fast-paced IT and telecom industries. He's worked with organizations at the startup level and also at the enterprise level, and his focus has been on partner management. Today, Sam will provide an overview of the importance of water leak detection technologies. And last but not least, Taylor Lush is here today as well to join us. Taylor is one of the sales representatives at Caliber Communications. And since the launch of the Rogers and Caliber Communications partnership, Taylor has worked as the new business development manager, acting as the primary point of contact between both sides of the partnership. Today, Taylor will give us a look inside how smart surveillance technologies can help reduce the frequency of security threats and why this is crucial. So in today's presentations, the panelists will share with us the different ways that we can help mitigate risks in our buildings. Before we kick it off with the presentations, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather here today. The land acknowledgement is a way that we are raising awareness of Indigenous presence and their traditional territory in everyday life. Together, we are on a journey of reconciliation and continue to build an inclusive workplace for Indigenous peoples and all our teams. Toronto is the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon territory, the dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. The dish, or sometimes it's called the bowl, represents what is now Southern Ontario, from the Great Lakes to Quebec and from Lake Simcoe into the United States. We all eat out of the dish, all of us that share this territory, with only one spoon. That means we have to share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty, which includes taking care of the land and the creatures we share it with. Importantly, there are no knives at the table, representing that we must keep the peace. Thank you. Okay, and now without further ado, take it away, Rebecca Delzalti.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Andrew, for your warm welcome. As Andrew indicated, my name is Rebecca. I am one of the product managers at Rogers, and I manage the Smart Buildings portfolio. I want to thank you all for joining today. It really is a pleasure to be speaking this afternoon or morning, wherever you're joining us from. I am in the GTA, and it is a very snowy afternoon for me. Pretty and festive from the inside, not so much on the outside. I find people forget how to drive on the first snowfall. But let's get started. So smart buildings. And what I want to do is I want to take a moment to level set with all of us in this room today on the concept of smart buildings. And I'm sure if we were to sit and think about what smart buildings means to us, we would all have some similar sentiments. But how does Rogers understand this definition? So on the very basic level understanding, it's strategically placing technology in a building and making that building smart. But it's much more than this. It's taking that technology, machine learning, the analytics, the data, the systems, bringing all of these components together and bringing value to the stakeholders in a building. And the stakeholders could be the building owner, the operators, the property managers, and also the occupants. And each stakeholder is going to have different needs, and they're going to have different definitions of what is valuable to them, stakeholder to stakeholder. So for example, the building owner is concerned with keeping assets safe, increasing value, managing costs. So the question from the building owner may be, how can technologies bring down costs? Whereas the property manager is concerned with increasing efficiencies, being proactive. So the question might be, how can I use smart building technologies to help reduce operational efficiencies? And then we have the occupant. And I would argue this being the most important stakeholder because they use these spaces every day. They keep buildings and businesses going for the large part. Well, the occupant, they're concerned with adaptable working environments, making work easier, more comfortable, and more safe. So the question coming from the occupant may be, how can we use technology to drive crime down in, said neighborhood? Each stakeholder is going to have a different view, and each view is right. So within our Rogers portfolio, our smart buildings ecosystem, we want to make sure that we're working with partners that can help address these various concerns and challenges through smart technologies and drive real business outcomes. And these smart technologies, whether we're talking about a commercial building, residential building, bank, a street light post, can allow for better decisions, saving money, all while making sure that buildings, assets, and our people are safe. And I just want to quickly bring attention to what's here on the screen. This is a snapshot into our Rogers Smart Spaces solutions. It's a mix between buildings and cities solutions. And at Rogers, we have a vast range from digital signage, for example, that will help make sure that the right message is being communicated to the right audience. So for example, maybe you're looking to attract new customers. So you want to highlight promotions or new products. So displaying menu boards at your pizza shop with those fully software, and with the click of a button, it can be updated to highlight price increases or a daily special, or perhaps you wanted a new festive holiday treat that you have at the grocery store and alternate those products on the screen. Perhaps Tuesday, you want to highlight the new cheese that you have in from Europe and suggestions of wine to pair with that. This can spike sales. We also have smart cities solutions that can help reduce traffic congestion, limit frequency of accidents, help direct occupants around the city to make sure that they're getting to the parking spot. And let's be honest, occupants, myself included, we're not fond of driving in circles and around trying to find a parking spot before an interview, or you're looking to pick up groceries after a long day. Studies actually indicate that an occupant, if they have an easier parking navigation experience within your parking lot, they're more likely to spend more money. So let's help occupants get to where they want to go faster with smart technologies. And lastly, I will touch on is at Rogers, we also offer a variety of technologies that will help reduce risk to your properties. This is pivotal, whether that be security threats in your building, assets to the people, to protection against water damage, which is one of the biggest risks to a property today. Water damage destroys flooring, carpets, drywalls, our belongings, and it's a huge expense for a business. Even if we're thinking about the residential space, a flood means dispersing tenants, and that's going to cost you. Now, I'm not going to steal the thunder of our guest speakers today because risk mitigation is exactly what we're going to be covering, how to protect our properties, and we're going to and of course Taylor Lush. What I'm attempting to underline here is through Rogers Smart Buildings and Smart Spaces, a portfolio at Rogers, we can provide real and tangible business outcomes depending on, what that core challenge may be that you're looking to solve for. But why do we care? So I have alluded to this. I've noted a few key things. Why do we care? Why should we care? Why does smart spaces and buildings matter to us? Well, the short answer is that they do provide those key business outcomes. And there's also a series of global trends that will really impact the real estate industry, and business owners and managers the like will have to actively consider how to accommodate for them. Number one, buildings are no longer thought of as a mere cost center. There is an increased focus on making these structures more effectively run for owners, operators, and occupants. So, to this end, companies have to embrace initiatives like the Green Building Certification, the Well Building Standard. And the reality is that by 2030, which is just around the clock, 60% of all people will reside in cities. This is a fact. This is twice that of the 1950s. This means that buildings are having to operate more efficiently to house residents, to house people. And our Rogers Smart Technologies can support operational efficiencies, reducing that energy consumption, improving resource utilization, saving companies money, and allowing for a more effectively run business. And number two, I want to highlight as a result of the pandemic, there is this great resignation looming. We're all aware of it. There is increased turnover, lack of employees in the physical building spaces. Employees are demanding more comfortable working environments. Smart building technology can improve occupants' comfort, which allows for staff to be more productive and happier. There's a lot of studies out there to indicate a variety of building design and operational strategies affect our indoor environmental quality. So, in other words, using smart building technologies to improve occupant experience through higher air quality, for example, a more pleasant, functional working area, it tends to result in valuable savings through a decreased absence of staff and actually lower staff turnover. And this is going to also boost brand perception, attract top talent, which to any business should be critical to increase sales and, of course, keep strong employees. And lastly, but certainly not least, as a result of COVID, buildings, spaces are left more and more unattended. There is less people in a building to make sure that product is not being confiscated. For example, in gyms, equipment is being stolen. That's a real problem where employees and gym members are confiscating weights. There is less people in a building to ensure people are free from danger. Sexual harassment or assault is on the rise, especially within smaller businesses. There's also less people in a building to hear that leaky pipe that is dripping. Well, now that leaky pipe has been left unattended and it's going to cost you. So smart technologies can reduce the impact and the frequency of potential risks in your buildings. And today we're going to learn more from our Rogers Smart Building partners on how to mitigate risks in your properties, which will ultimately increase occupant experience and is also going to drive those operational efficiencies. So with that, I will hand it over back to you, Andrew, to intro the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's some really amazing work that you and your team are working on. When you think about it, it's pretty critical these days when considering the fact that, many buildings are left more and more unattended these days. Of course, as a result of COVID-19, we have corporate offices, banks, car dealerships, even webinars, which are left with less and less people. So, but that being said, technology, I think with the technology that you mentioned, we can, it definitely will go a long way to keep our spaces safe and free from threats. So that being said, next up, we'll hear from Sam. Sam, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And thank you for those who've taken the opportunity to join. I'm Sam Reid. I'm the Director of Sales here at Eddy, responsible for our channel partner program. I've been working with the Rogers team for 18 months and been with Eddy for 2.5 years. So before I get into kind of who we are and what we do, I want to highlight, some key statistics that, really exemplify why water is such a challenge in buildings today. Insurers are especially saying that water is the new fire. And the reason for that is it is the leading cost for them when paying out on insurance claims. So right now in Canada, they're paying about $2 billion a year out, which equates to about 70% of all claims that they have in the commercial space. And as we all know, once insurers start paying out in a certain sector, they start to adjust rates and deductibles accordingly to ensure that they remain profitable. Also, another leading statistic is, in terms of individual claims, the average claim on a commercial size project, under construction is just over $300,000. Now, in terms of who Eddy is a North American-based technology company founded in 2015. So, we're just past 7 years now. We've done a lot of work, in the past 5 years in the commercial multifamily space, and that's where our continuing focus is today. We have done a little bit of work in residential. That's where we actually started, but we've shifted focus because there's a greater need and risk for these larger commercial properties. A couple key milestones for Eddy this past year. One is we actually acquired another leak detection company called Reed Water. We brought them in-house to become, a larger, more strategic company with a greater resource from both a sales and engineering standpoint. And we were also earlier this year listed on the TSX Venture Exchange. We have a number of partners. Rogers is our leading partner on the telecommunications side, but we work with a lot of other verticals as well, including leaders in the developer, constructor, and property management space. In terms of our products, there's a number of different products that Eddy will use to protect your property. I'll start on the left here, talking first about our Eddy IQ. This is an all-in-one device that goes onto pipe sizes up to 1 inch. This device has a built-in ultrasonic flow meter to capture flow rates right down to 0.1 liters per minute. It gets very granular, and it also has a built-in automatic shutoff valve. This device will use behavioral learning to understand the usage pattern and water flow through a specific area of the building. And when it detects an anomaly, it will send out alerts. Automatically, it's sent out text and emails, and then we have a call center that will make calls as well. And then the device will automatically shut off to protect that area of the building. Now, this device will only support pipes up to 1 inch. For most larger properties, that isn't sufficient. That will likely be a subsystem. So we also have other devices that will support pipe sizes up to 24 inches. And it's basically the Eddy IQ broken up into multiple pieces, and we call it the Eddy Link and then the Eddy Valve. The link is the control module, and that will connect to an existing flow meter. That flow meter can then provide data back about flow and consumption for that area of the building. If there isn't a flow meter available, we also have those that you can add as well. And then the link will also connect to an actuator on the valve. So when a shutoff is necessary, it will shut down the water to that area of the building. And the way we augment the system to provide really granular data about where leaks are coming from is with our H2O sensor. The H2O sensor is a wireless device that can be placed anywhere throughout the building to help isolate and pinpoint where leaks are occurring. If you want to see an example of the size of it, I'm just showing it up now. So it's very small, discreet, and very easy to deploy throughout a building. The two silver connectors that you see, those is what needs to come in contact with water in order for it to activate. The device is recessed about 1/8 of an inch, so that way, a little spill of water is not going to set it off. It does require an accumulation to prevent false positives. And again, once the device picks up that water is present, you get the automatic alerts through email and text, as well as the calls from our call center. In addition to detecting water, this device will also, through that pinhole, monitor ambient air temperature and humidity readings. These are great additional insights to have. There are some properties where they have challenges with tenants leaving doors and windows open and going away for the weekend. This is the time of year you don't want that to happen, because then pipes can freeze and burst. So this will send an automatic alert once this device senses temperature below a set threshold. It could be 5 degrees or 10 degrees. Also for humidity, monitoring, enclosed areas where small leaks, what we call pinhole leaks, when those develop, sometimes the water doesn't accumulate, it will just absorb into the material around it. So having that humidity data is going to give you that insight that there is moisture building up in that area, and someone should investigate to see why that's occurring. So all of our devices use a wireless protocol called LoRaWAN to communicate. LoRaWAN is just simply a low power wide area communications technology that enables really strong and robust communication, especially through larger buildings. Concrete rebar insulation is a challenge from an interference standpoint, but LoRaWAN is very resilient to that. And as a result, if we were deploying in, let's say a lower, mid, high-rise building, we would only need one gateway every second floor. In terms of how the devices communicate, so as I mentioned, we use LoRaWAN. The gateways are then powered by the Rogers network. The Rogers network will then send the data to our cloud so it can be available through a couple of front-end systems. For smaller deployments, we're going to leverage our Eddy app that is accessible through either Android or Apple phones, or for larger deployments, and this is what we traditionally use, is our property management dashboard. This dashboard gives the property owner and management team the ability to view all of the consumption data for the property, as well as all of the alerts coming in, any of the data from the sensors, including the temperature, humidity readings, and battery level. And then also gives them the ability to control the system. So any of the valves throughout the property can be turned on and off automatically through this property management dashboard. As I mentioned, we also have a 24/7 monitoring center. We're monitoring for all alerts coming in. It's very easy for people when they're working throughout a property to get distracted by other jobs that they're doing. An alert from our system is usually considered a higher priority. So when it comes in, we're also calling the property to ensure the appropriate actions are being taken. And then if necessary, we can also turn off the valves on our end to, again, ensure the property is protected from further issues. We do have APIs available to enable integrations into other backend systems as well. In terms of data collected, the biggest thing we're monitoring for is the flow and consumption in the building, because that gives us a lot of data and insights as to where challenges might lie. And one of the things that we're going to monitor for are continuous flow events. Those continuous flow events will indicate that there is likely a challenge in the building, and it could be either leading to damage or it might not. So for commercial properties who are using automated flushers, when those fail, toilets can run automatically. Residential properties, leaky flappers on toilets or leaking sinks are a fairly common occurrence. So those are the sorts of things we can also identify by capturing these flow rates. Now, regardless of, what the flow rate is from, the more severe the flow rate, the shorter our threshold is for alerting of a potential issue. We don't want to be shutting down the water just because it's a really low flow. That isn't going to cause a lot of damage. So we'll let that go for a little bit longer, but those thresholds tighten once the flow rate gets higher. So combining this with the temperature and humidity alerts is going to give you a lot of great insights to not only mitigate risk from the building, but also to plan preventative maintenance activities. As infrastructure ages, it's going to be more prone to failure. So by having these insights available, it's going to give you great insight as to when you should start doing repairs and/or replacements to the critical infrastructure of the building. Next slide, please. Thank you. So by having these insights, especially around consumption, will enable you to plan on how to save water for the building. And being able to reduce the consumption of water in the building, could help you move towards some of the sustainability targets that you have for your property. as ESG becomes more and more important in terms of building operations, as well as what tenants or owners will look for in a property. This is one valuable asset that you could also include on top of the protection that you're going to be receiving for the building. By reducing consumption of water, there's also a trickle-down effect to other systems. So you think of being able to reduce water consumption, it's reducing the impact on the municipal services that have to deliver and treat that water. So it's going to reduce energy to the building as a whole. There are a number of areas that we can protect throughout a building. I know this one shows a high rise. If you're not working with a high rise, the concepts can be applied just on a smaller scale. So we'll almost always put a shutoff valve on the main point of entry where the water's coming into the building. And this basically would be for a catastrophic event that's happening into the building. You want to be able to have an avenue to shut that down and mitigate any further damage. And we will do this for both the domestic cold systems, usually on the lower level, and then the hot water systems as well. They could be either on the same level or in some cases on larger buildings in the mechanical penthouse. For larger buildings that have their water systems segmented into zones, we have the ability to put valves onto the zones. That way you can isolate a portion of the building so you minimize the impact to the tenants if a shutdown is required. Another key aspect to water in buildings, water is also used for heating and cooling in many cases. This system is called a closed loop system. So we can monitor this as well to ensure that, anytime water is being added to that system, it's not an excess amount. Closed loop systems by nature don't need a lot of additional water once they're filled. So we can monitor that to ensure that it is, not asking for additional water. And then as well, we can place our sensors throughout the building in the common areas, the mechanical penthouse, the booster pump room, any other critical utility spaces, as well as amenity spaces. So if you have a gym in your facility or, a party room or a kitchenette, those sorts of areas could have the sensor as well. For in-unit, there are a number of different areas that we can protect. This is giving a snapshot of a residential view, but you could also apply the same concepts to a commercial property. You see on the far right there in the little cupboard, there's 2 IQ meters on the hot and the cold line. Again, those could be done either residential or commercial, and those would provide isolation at the unit level as well as a shutoff. We would also put one of our H2O sensors inside that access panel to monitor for any leaks of the riser, because those typically wouldn't be visible until the damage is, has spread quite far. Also through the unit, we would monitor fan coil units or heat pumps because those have a tendency to have failures, whether it's a backup from the condensate pan drain or one of the risers bursting. So those are areas we can monitor as well. And then throughout the unit, other water appliances, kitchenette, washrooms, laundry areas. One of the great advantages of working with Eddy as well is we have a number of strategic partnerships with key insurers. So the names you see on the right are some of the insurers that we're working with today. And with them, they've recognized our solution. They will recommend it to their clients. And there are potential incentives available. Whether that's during construction, during the builder's risk phase, or once the building gets into completion, or if it's an existing building that we're putting our system into. And if we are deploying into a residential style property, even the homeowners, the condo owners would have the ability to claim some form of insurance incentive. So, all the stakeholders are going to be able to take advantage of it from an insurance standpoint. So in terms of what makes Eddy a leader in leak detection, I've mentioned most of these today. I'll just close with a couple of key points. First is our full term warranty, maintenance, and support. Our typical contract is 5 to 7 years. During that time, the system is fully maintained, supported, and warranted, and that's a significant difference over all of our competitors who are usually in the 1 to 2 year space. Also, whenever you're looking to put connected devices into buildings, data security is always top of mind. With our solution, we've implemented a number of measures to ensure that the data, but more importantly, the control of the system is as protected as possible.
Great. Thank you, Sam. It's quite a timely solution. Now, with that being said, it's time for our first Q&A session. I'm sure you all have some great questions for Sam. If you have a question, please use the chat box and we'll address your questions. Okay, so I see one has come through here. So I wouldn't want the sensors to be placed in plain sight.
Mhm.
Do you place the sensors in a way where they're located away from, I guess, field of vision?
Yeah, well, that's always a concern because, depending on where it's being deployed and the type of building, especially let's say it's commercial, then people are worried about someone just picking it up and walking away with it. So we usually strategically place the sensors, to be a little bit more discreetly placed. So if it was in a kitchen, for an example, it would be underneath the dishwasher behind the kick plate. If it's in a laundry room, then it's going to be behind the washing machine. In a washroom, it's going to be, in behind a toilet or underneath the vanity. We also do secure them down. We have brackets that they do go in to secure them in place. If we have to find ways to, even make them more secure than what our traditional bracket is, we have ways of doing that as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. One more question has come through. What is the warranty like, and maybe you can talk about the pricing model a bit.
Yeah, so sure. As the warranty, as I mentioned, it's full term to our typical agreement. So, 5 to 7 years, depending on what initial term is set up. So if you signed a 7-year agreement, it's a full 7-year warranty. The pricing model is a little bit more convoluted because there's so many different property styles out there. But from a kind of budgetary standpoint, you're looking for a new build around 2 cents per square foot per month. And then for a retrofit, you're in around 3 cents per square foot per month. And
Perfect.
sorry, and that would be the equipment amortized over that term as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. Well, thanks everyone for your questions. Love the enthusiasm for the product. And if, let's see here, I just believe one more has come in. Okay, are the residential sensors connected via Wi-Fi, and would it require high signal strength?
No, so as I mentioned, we use LoRaWAN, which is a little bit of a different technology than Wi-Fi for all of our devices. And when we deploy our solution, we ensure that the signal strength is adequate for the entire property. It's part of the service that we provide.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you again, everyone.
Yes, and what I'll do is after the webinar, actually, a member from the Rogers team will be following up with you, just in case you have any additional questions, and we can address them as well.